On today's episode, we're going to talk about what is the actual cost of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is another episode of Path to the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, the most anticipated and excited camera that was announced at NAB this past year, just a little bit over a month ago. I already did one episode where we were talking about exactly who is the Pocket Camera for. Today we're going to sort of go into more of the price. Now, when I mean price, I mean what is the actual cost of the camera. For someone like me who's actually owned previous Blackmagic cameras, owned and rented previous Blackmagic cameras, I wanted to sort of go into more of what is the actual cost, meaning what is the actual cost of a camera to get it to work. For example, the Red Raven is just under $10,000, but that will only give you the brain of the camera. You need so many more features to just make it out and go out and work. And altogether kitted out, it comes to close to about $15,000 to actually get the Red Raven up and running with just the basic features. Now, obviously, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera is not going to be anywhere near that price, but what is the actual price? Because a lot of people are comparing this camera to the GH5S, but saying this is a far cheaper option, it offers better codecs. So based on my experience, I wanted to sort of, give you guys sort of a clear insight of how much this actual will cost, because there's a lot of features that you will definitely need from accessories in order to make this camera fully work. So what I have here is my trusty LG V30, and we're going to do some math to see how much is the cost to get the camera up and running. The first thing we want to talk about is that you're definitely going to need is an external monitor. Now you may say, wait, James, it has a 5-inch 1080p display monitor. Why would I need an external monitor? I don't see a reason to get it. Well, the reason you will probably need it is because, unfortunately, the screen that the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera doesn't come with, that the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera comes with, it does not articulate. And I mean articulate, it doesn't articulate at all, which means that unless you're planning to just film all your shots, every single shot that you ever do, just directly in your face, directly in front of you, you're not going to be able to see what you're filming. And that is a no-no if you're going to try to do this and do this professionally. So you are going to need an external monitor. Now, there's plenty of options for external monitors. If you want to do like a dual recording sort of as a backup or sort of like a proxy recording, you can get Blackmagic's Video Assist. But there's also another problem that is also, I personally feel, that's on the Pocket Cinema camera that the Video Assist from Blackmagic doesn't resolve. And that is the fact that the Pocket Cinema camera does not have a waveform monitor. Now, for people that's just been in DSLRs the entire time, you will probably not see the difference. However, if you've been in any sort of professional work, not having the waveform monitor is a huge deal, because the histogram does an okay job of helping you read your exposures, but nowhere near as good as a waveform monitor. And if you want to take that next step into going into professional work, that you really should have that waveform monitor. And unfortunately for the Video Assist, it does not have a waveform monitor on it. It only has a histogram as well. But you could use something like the Small HD Focus, which costs about the same price as the Video Assist. So that has a waveform monitors and HDR and LEDs. So let's just say you got to add that. So that's another $500. Next thing we got to talk about is the battery. Now, Blackmagic has now put in the Canon LP6, I think that's what it's called. If it's not, I'll correct it. But they put the Canon batteries, the common Canon batteries that is found in DSLRs, in the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, which compared to the original Pocket Cinema camera, it's great. It definitely will last longer. But then again, the original one lasted about 20 to 30 minutes. The problem is that I'm pretty sure they say, the problem is they only say it will last an hour if you're recording. which means it's probably going to last less than that, probably around 45 minutes of record time. Now, James, how can you be aware of that? How do you know how much the battery is going to cost? Well, if it's all really, it has to do with the key feature, one of the key features of the Blackmagic camera, and that is ProRes. Now, for those of you who have never worked with ProRes or never actually recorded externally with ProRes or done any features with ProRes, just understand this. If you have, then you've probably noticed. If you've noticed, every single device, whether if it's a camera from Blackmagic or other camera that can record ProRes, or an external recording device like the Atomos Ninja or the Blackmagic Video Assist, you will notice quickly that all of these devices that record to ProRes, their batteries drain extremely quickly, especially when you get into 4K shooting. The battery just drains and just drops. And this is something that a lot of you guys should know about when going into this camera, and that is the fact that ProRes is a very battery draining codec. It drains batteries in any devices that it puts into. So you need a powerful battery solution in order to counteract that. The codec, because it's a codec that takes so much energy to process and keep things at such a high data rate and such an efficiency rate. So you're going to need a battery solution for this. And the best solution is going to be a V-mount battery, which also means you're probably going to need some way to mount it to the camera, which means you're going to need a rig system, which means you're going to need a cage. And so you're probably looking about another $1,000 just to get the rig, the batteries, the rails, and the cage and everything set up. You're probably looking about another $1,000. Now, obviously, you can find other batteries. You can just buy a whole bunch of the, Canon batteries. But when you're in a situation where you got to constantly record it, you just can't just stop just to switch batteries. Especially if you're doing pay gigs or in corporate shootings. It looks very unprofessional. It looks bad on you to have to wait, stop. I need to switch the batteries. Or worse, if you're at a wedding, you're filming a wedding, and then you got to go to the. Oh wait, don't, before you say I do, let me switch these batteries out real quick. Let me hold up, or you can't tell the bride. Oh, you know what? Oh, the battery's dying. Can you go back down the aisle again? Yeah, you'll probably never get booked again. So you need a battery solution to make sure that it's constantly running on at least a decent amount of time. And a decent amount of time for me is about an hour and a half, which is probably about how long the GH5S lasts just on one battery of its own internal batteries. So that's the battery. Now let's talk focus, because there's no autofocus, even though there technically is autofocus. It's a one push, but based on previous experiences with Blackmagic cameras, it's basically useless. So you're going to have to focus manually. And holding the camera and focusing manually that way is not ideal, especially in professional environments, which is what this camera is sort of designed to be, so more of a professional camera. So you're now going to need a follow focus system. Let's try to be super conservative. Let's say, okay, you get the camera, and then you get a monitor for $500. Then let's say, instead of going with the V-mount battery, you decide, okay, I'm going to just spend $300 to go get the Canon battery. So that's another $300. So that's $300. So that brings you a total up to $2,100. You decide to get a follow focus system. You could get a whole rig setup for about $200, $300. So let's crack it in between and just say $250. So another $250. So now your total is looking at $2,350 to solve just those features that I was talking to you about. Now let's get to the main thing, which is what everybody was excited about, which is that you got 4K 60p RAW, which is great. I shoot 4K 60p on my Canon C100. I actually just got done filming just yesterday. Did a shoot and shot it all in 4K 60p RAW, and I loved it. It was just so flexible, and it made things so much more easier. Ironically, even though it's more heavier files, it made it actually easier in post, just simply because of the flexibility that I have with such the with the amount of color depth that I had. There is one thing, and this is for people who are not familiar with shoot, if you're never shot RAW before, this is something that you do need to be aware of. RAW is very intense on your computer, and it will. So unless, depending on, especially if you're going to be using Resolve 15, DaVinci Resolve is a great tool. I love working with it, but it is very demanding on your PC or your Mac or whatever computer that you plan to use. And it uses up a lot of your memory and a lot of your graphics card. Especially if you're planning to try to do 4K 60 RAW, unless you have a very intensive computer, you're going to struggle trying to work and edit those files. So if you're trying to get in, try to film to get into the RAW process, well, now you're going to have to look at seeing if your computer can handle dealing with RAW, or even just dealing with DaVinci and how DaVinci works. Because again, DaVinci alone, before you even touch RAW, is a very heavy. It puts a lot of work on your computer. So if you're using a computer that's sort of, especially if it's something like an i6 or before, yeah, your computer's probably not going, your processor is not going to be able to handle all that data and all that information, which means you're going to have to update your computer and update your graphics card probably as well. So my best bet is if you're dead set on having it on a desktop, the next best thing is to get a laptop. And the best ones to me are gaming laptops. But for the type of work that you want to do, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. I have my Dell Inspiron laptop right here that I do pretty much all my editing on right now. And this one cost me $1,500. You're looking at $3,850, so $3,850 just to work with the highest features of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. So, like I said, you can see this money adds up really quickly, and it can really intensify just to make it work and make it work properly. Don't think that you're just going to get this camera and you can just go out and shoot. This is not a camera that you can just grab and go. None of the Blackmagic cameras are like that. You have to buy accessories to make them work, and that's sort of how they go. Unless you just plan to film on sticks the entire time, yeah, pretty much you're going to need an external monitor, you're going to need a battery solution, you're going to need a focus solution, and you're going to need, once you do all that and go into post, you're going to need a computer powerful enough to deal with all that processing, whether if it's RAW or ProRes, especially if you're planning to use Resolve 15, which you get for free with the Pocket Cinema camera. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Let me know if you want to hear more of these. In the next one, what I'm definitely going to do is go more into RAW and how RAW works, especially Cinema DNG. But yeah, definitely if you want to learn more about RAW and sort of understanding RAW and how it works in terms of video formats, definitely stick around. Make sure to hit that subscribe button again so you can keep up to date on the contents. But yeah, that's it. So hopefully this was helpful. Until next time, guys, take care.